Robert Redford and his son James Redford have produced a new documentary called Watershed, exploring a new water ethic for the New West. He joins me now by phone. Mr. Redford, what do people need to know about the Colorado River, and how educated do you think they actually are about the state of the river?
I don't know how educated they are, because that would take some kind of polling that I'm not capable of doing, but I think the main thing for people to know, particularly those who consider the Colorado River an American icon, which a lot of people do, it's sort of classified as a symbol of America and the beauty and good of America, that it no longer reaches its destination. Colorado River no longer reaches the Sea of Cortez, Sea of California, and I don't think a lot of people know that, and that's a sign of something bigger, which is change. And I think that change is inevitable, despite people that seem to be afraid of change. It is inevitable. It's going to happen, and it's happening now very big and very fast. And certain things are disappearing or shrinking that would be a shock to us to learn about, because it's happening so fast. And this is one of them, and I think there's a solution to this. I think that's the main thing to talk about, is that you don't want to introduce something that there's no hope for. I don't think America does well with that. We want to know we can do something about it. Well, this is something we can do something about, because we can restore the Colorado River to its destination if people get some facts. And the film, I think, delivers all that information and the facts and what people can do about it.
And what are the solutions?
Well, the first thing is you have to look at this is obviously an issue of demand exceeding supply. So what is that demand? What about that demand as you look at that equation? Who represents the demand? And there's some issues there. There's some participants that probably don't need it. There's certain power plants that require a lot of water that maybe shouldn't even be there. Or if they are there, they can reorganize their structures to not use so much water. Look at how water is used, and look at the waste issue of how water is used, because we waste a lot of water, and the film shows how we waste that water. And look at the supply. Look at exactly what that water does and what it supplies, and what values it has in terms of what it does supply, and what waste is exercised with using water that isn't necessarily needed. How much water do you need for golf courses? How many golf courses do you need? And I love golf, but we're at a point now where we can't have everything we used to have. Otherwise, we're going to have nothing. So I think looking at it from that standpoint, and then also knowing what people can do by contributing to the Colorado River Delta Water Trust, is any donation of any kind, when it gains momentum, will help raise the money to buy water rights back from agriculture to put water back into its destination.
So this documentary explores a new water ethic. What is that new ethic?
Is how water is. The water ethic is looking hard at water. Don't look at water the way we've been looking at it for the past century or more, which is it's there forever. It's something that's always going to be there for us. Therefore, we can use it to abundance. We can use it any which way we want, because there's plenty of it that will always be there. Well, it won't. And this is an example of how it won't. So therefore, we better take a hard look at water to create a new ethic, rather than everything at all time. We have to be more conservative. We have to conserve our efforts in order to preserve such a priceless resource. Without water, we don't exist.
Who are some of the people who tell the story about the Colorado River in this documentary? Well,
7 states are represented by the Colorado River. 7 states use that water. That's a pretty big impact. Well, you look at ranchers, you look at agricultural, you look at farmers that actually depend on the water for their own sustenance, sometimes 5 generations of people, and how they use that water, and some of them show how they use it judiciously. You have a bike shop in Los Angeles that talks about how water means to him because it gets to Los Angeles. Los Angeles is dependent on that water, and San Diego is dependent on that water. I mean, there are all these cities that are dependent on that water, and we take a look at who some of those cities are and how that water is being used, but also how it's being wasted. And when you go into Colorado, the state, and you go into a little town like Rifle, which has an incredible mayor, he talks about how much water is used to extract oil or gas out of the earth. It's unbelievable, and people need to have this information. I think people just tend to not know what's really going on out there, and it's time we start paying attention to what is being threatened and what is shrinking and what may go away. I mean,
and Mr. Redford, we're going to have to wrap it there. I'm sorry to have to interrupt you.
Okay.
Thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome. Thank you.